remember me? Did you miss me? Did you miss Kelly? Did you miss Garrett? It goes without saying that it's very exciting to be back, and the amount of messages and comments we got after we posted the photo from our moose hunt has been pretty overwhelming, to say the least. You'll hear it over and over again in this episode, but all of us just want to say thank you for your outpouring of love and support for what we've done over the years. And I think one of the most important things that we've gained from stepping back from Rookie Hunter has been the ability to sort of reflect on why it's been important to us, or why it was important to us when we first hit record on episode 1. And the whole point of this has always been for ourselves, to preserve our story. And the byproduct of that has always been the hope that somebody else would listen to it and benefit from learning from all of our mistakes and everything we've learned along the way. The other thing that I'd like to mention is that Rookie Hunter was made possible for so many years because of support from sponsorship. It does require a lot of time, and it does have costs associated with it to produce a show that I think is of high quality and of high value. And without the support of the Wild Sheep Foundation for many, many years, we wouldn't have been able to do it for so long and to do it as well as we did. So I would like to, reach back and say thank you again to the Wild Sheep Foundation and encourage all of you to support them for supporting us. We wanted to do this episode because we wanted to preserve this story because it becomes full circle. So, we started hunting when my dad passed away and I inherited his rifles, and Kelly and I started to have conversations about becoming hunters, and then we became hunters and we learned lots. And slowly over time, I sort of was throwing out little hints to Wayne because I knew he was listening to become a hunter. Wayne is Kelly's dad, as some of you may know, and as you'll find out. And part of the reason for that was because I don't have a dad to hunt with, and I wish that I had the opportunity to go back in time and hunt with him. So it's about preserving these traditions and starting new ones with family and friends. And we got to go on a moose hunt with Kelly's dad. And this is the first time that all of us have gotten together. His father-in-law, Randy, joined us. You've heard from him very, very early on in the Rookie Hunter days. And it was just a really cool experience looking at it from that angle of generations coming together. And Kelly's got a son now, and one day he's going to join us. And that's what it's all about. It's not about the harvest. It's not about the animal you bring home or the antlers or anything like that. It's about connecting with family and friends and creating those traditions. So this is a special episode. That's why we wanted to do it. But with all that said, we may be coming back. So keep an eye on our socials. Keep an eye on our feed. Leave us a 5-star rating review so that we become relevant in iTunes and everything again, because we've slowly faded away into dust. But that's enough rambling from me. Sit back, relax, crack an ice cold beer, and enjoy this episode of Rookie Hunter. Cool, man. We're rolling.
Awesome.
Kelly, what's on tap?
An Olay. We're switching it up a little bit here. It's been a long time. A lot of things have changed.
Yeah.
For one, I guess they're not drinking as much beer. But right now, I think these Olays are BC based. So, some folks might not know what the heck we're talking about here, but this one's a tequila mule.
Nice.
So it's a cocktail.
Yeah, I've kind of switched from beer to red wine and tequila.
Yeah.
It's kind of my jam.
And there's some bourbon in there too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel, by dropping, there's something about beer that gives me an instant headache as much as I like the taste.
Yeah.
And also, we all know that it kind of hits you in the gut over time.
It does.
It's surprising, you do lose some weight just by not drinking beer.
Yeah, did you say you dropped like 10 pounds?
Yeah, like 7-10 pounds, somewhere in like that.
Yeah.
Over a couple months,
but definitely does something. Yeah.
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 I don't know if that's a beer itself or just the fact that it's so easy to have one.
That's probably part of it. Yeah. So I'm sure folks are disappointed to hear this news.
Yeah.
Because we kept the beer train going, but
and I think we're disappointed too, but I think we've kind of come around too.
Cool, man. Well, it's nice to fucking get in we'll call this the studio.
Yeah, this is nice.
Yeah. Got a den in my place here that I've turned into a studio. I guess I just call it my office, but I got acoustic panels and I mix films and everything in here. And yeah.
We've got a new partner in crime.
Yeah, we've got Oscar 2.0, which is Earl. Earl, welcome to the podcast.
He's got his head on my leg right now. Weimaraner as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned him because I came on and talked to you and Garrett a couple of times there.
Yeah.
And talked about him. And I've actually had him for, I think October 5th would have been like the 2-year point that I've had him. And I got him when he was 9 or 10. No, he was probably 10 months old when I got him.
Nice.
Yeah. Because his birthday's at the end of November. And he's turned out to be a really good dog, man.
Yeah, he is good.
For a
He's
Weimaraner.
Been on some hunts too.
Yep. He's a good grousing dog. He, I told you this story, but I took him, he's been on like a number of grouse hunts, and I think he's like starting to piece it together. Like, oh, this is like, there's like an objective here and a point to this. And this was maybe 2 weeks ago. I took him out, and he's got a really good nose. And so he's going like, he cuts back and forth, like he's tracking sort of, right? And catching scents. And there's this area that you're familiar with, the lake that I like to go to. And always seem to find birds. And there's 2 specific locations that are like perfect grouse habitat. Yeah. And usually you see at least one grouse in one of these 2 spots. And it's cool to hike in there. So his nose was going crazy. And he cut into this bush, perfectly put a grouse up right in front of me, like 10 feet in front of me in a tree. And I shot at this fucking thing like 5 times and missed it. And he's looking at me like, come on, dude. Like, I finally figured this out. Put that grouse right there for us. So I really feel like I let him down. I was kind of disappointed.
But. Yeah. You didn't send me, I think the video you sent me was him basically having the zoomies doing figure eights around all the trees. That was the first time. Yeah. I think. And yeah, he was a ways off at that point.
Yeah. Just stoked to be out, I think, at that point. But
yeah, he's super chill. And he's done really well on big game hunts too. Obviously he's on a leash, but he's super quiet, and he's, just low key kind of, he might wonder, why am I sitting here for 2 hours straight? But he doesn't care, he just kind of lays down. You've always had good luck with dogs on hunts, because common sense would kind of say, well, if you're going to bring an animal in there, they're going to make noise, and that's going to be a bad thing for the hunt. And, it's adding components and things that make things more complicated. But I don't know. I think in some ways it almost helps because it puts the animals at ease in a way. Yeah,
we were talking about this too, and I think it kind of makes, we were on an elk hunt, which maybe we'll get into, maybe we won't. Yeah. But I almost feel like it makes them a little bit more curious. Because it's not like he's howling like a wolf, but he's making a bit of noise.
Yeah, he doesn't really look like a predator.
No, but I think like that little bit of noise might, a bull elk might think that's a cow, especially when we're calling and stuff, you know what I mean? So it's like, especially in the rut, I think it just creates a bit of curiosity. Yeah. And on the other hand, too, it's like it makes it a little bit more challenging, which can make it fun or frustrating. But it's like that whole fair chase thing. It kind of puts the ball in the deer or the elk's court.
Yeah,
it makes it a little easier for them. But I had good luck with Oscar, and both bucks that I got were with him, and nothing with this guy yet, but not because he scared him away or anything. So
Well, yeah, we were in that one spot on the elk hunt this year, which we traveled to, and we kind of had this little honey hole that we called in actually the first day. This is kind of the first year that I've started elk calling and learning how to use a diaphragm call. And, I would say the cow call, probably the easiest because you don't necessarily have to use a diaphragm call. You can use whatever you want, right? Just buy a little, whatever tool from, whatever, and just give some cow calls. And that seems to work the best, especially if you know that there's some elk in the area. Yeah. Like to go in there and just blast a bugle at them is probably not the best thing to do if you know they're right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we called in a couple 5 points over the last couple of years, same spot. And yeah, and we went back the next day and I think we kind of blew them out. But the point I was going to kind of get to was, Earl saw me coming. I was going to sit by you guys who were in different spots there. And just out of excitement, he starts barking at me, right?
Yeah. Well, he was sleeping, so I think you kind of startled him.
Oh, okay. And I had my hood on.
Yeah. And he's like, what the fuck is going on here? Yeah.
Yeah. So you do run the risk of,
yeah.
There's, it goes back to that, like adding complexity to the hunt where you don't necessarily have to.
No.
But it is an interesting.
Yeah. And it's nice to have him around, but
yeah,
it definitely makes it a bit more challenging. So all in all, it's good. They're good entertainment, and as long as they're not just a fucking disaster the whole time, then it's worth bringing them, I think.
That's the thing, and he's not, so why not?
Yeah, and I know when Oscar was getting older there, it was tough, man, going out, because I do a lot of hunts on my own.
Yeah.
And to have like a dog as your hunting partner, it's kind of nice, and it just felt weird to go out without a dog when like my whole hunting career has always been with Oscar up until that point, and then it's nice to have another guy coming out now.
Well, so far they're proving to be a good breed.
Yeah.
For what we do.
Yeah, they are hunting dogs, so I guess it's and both of them like no formal hunting training, it's just kind of in their blood, which is cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other cool, I've mentioned this before with Oscar, but it's like it's kind of like they know, okay, we're going on a hike. Like I can be a absolute moron, but now like they just seem to know that you're hunting, and like things are a little bit, it's like they pick up on your energy and your focus on like what's going on. And they're kind of looking at you like, oh, I guess you should be quiet, and maybe there's something around, or like they're just very in tune with what's going on. And I mean, I've luckily for him been doing this since I first got him, so I think he's going to be a really good hunting dog. And Oscar, I think must have been like 7 or 8 years old when I first started hunting with him, and he adapted to it pretty well.
He did,
He's biting your toes. Cal, we've got a bunch of questions. Well, maybe we can come back to the elk hunt another time or something, but
for sure.
Do you want to do some of those now, or do you want to get into the moose story and come back to those?
I don't think many of the questions were directly related to the moose hunt, actually. Maybe we could zip through some of those.
Sure.
Do you want to, should we do a name call and then the question, or do you want to just read the questions?
Doesn't matter. We can give some shout outs.
We've got some longtime listeners in here, actually. Derek K. Gray. Did your perspective on hunting culture change when you stepped back from social media and podcasts?
That's a good question. I don't think that you and I had ever really felt any pressure. Well, I mean, I think we did a little bit to get an animal, but I don't think. I
think there kind of is, but we never. It was always going to be let it be, right?
Yeah,
like we always had only so many plans and so many dates, and if you're successful, you're successful, and. Yeah, that component of pressure, to come out with a story is always the best thing. But I think we learned that you always come out with a story.
Yeah, you definitely do. Yeah. And it's always been important for us to paint a realistic picture of what hunting is for most people, which means it can be 1 year where I got a 4-point buck.
Everything happens.
You got a white-tailed doe, and then we got that fucking massive bull elk.
Yeah.
And then the following year, nothing. I don't know if that's how it went, but
I think the 2-point muley was in there, or the triceratops that I got too was in there.
That same year?
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there. So, I mean, it's like, it's like the ebbs and flows of hunting. You can have really great years,
Yeah.
really shitty years. And I think those shitty years kind of motivate you to like come back to it and try harder.
Yeah.
Or try a new approach or a new area. You know what I mean? So it's most people, I'd say 90% of people have a similar story to what we're doing. And I think that's why people can kind of relate to, you know, the stories that we're sharing here, is because that's kind of just how it is.
Yeah, man. And I think like generally, as far as social media goes and hunting and all that, I think we were always a little bit challenged with the whole thing while we were podcasting.
Right.
We talked about it a number of times. Still kind of the same now, you know, there's pros and cons. And, you know, I find I don't listen to a lot of as much hunting podcasts myself, but I'm still as interested and motivated and, you know, out hunting as much as possible that I always have been. It's just that we were kind of disengaged from Instagram there for a while too.
Yeah.
It just becomes not so much a passion of hunting thing, which is always there. It's just a culmination of life at a certain point.
Right.
You know, demands of careers and kids and family and all that at the same time. At least that from my perspective, that's kind of where I thought, you know, I need to take a step back from this for a while. And, you know, we've always said that we do this for us. So, you know, for us to make that decision, and you kind of made a similar decision there earlier, which is why Garrett had stepped into the podcast for a while. So like, I think because we're doing this for us, we have the freedom to just do what we feel is best for us in the moment. Yeah. You know, we're not tied to any, you know, reason other than that. So it's, I don't know, man. I don't think my position on social media or, you know, hunting or anything like that has changed. I think I'm still as passionate about it as ever. It's just more of how engaged we were during that period of time. Yeah.
It is easy to get caught up in it all, but I think maybe by stepping away, we've sort of come back to where we started.
Yeah.
Which, like you just said, is doing it for us. And from the beginning, it's always been like, this shit will be fun to listen to when we're 80.
Yeah.
It was never about like podcasting for people to enjoy, which I'm glad people do.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of great feedback, which was nice to see. But it's always been for our sake and just preserving all of this shit. So
yeah, man.
I think stepping back just kind of solidified that. And
I think if anything, it just gives us time to reflect on our show and kind of what we did. And, you know, even looking back at the pictures and, you know, kind of reflecting on the story in a way, it kind of felt like in that time, it kind of felt like we accomplished what we wanted to, you know?
Yeah.
Which was to create a story that other people could relate to. Just through kind of, you know, our own journey. But I kind of felt like we crossed, obviously we'll never be experts. We're always going to be rookies. That's what we've always said. But I kind of feel like we crossed a pretty big gap there and crossed it enough to where, you know, you could almost reuse the story over and over to people that are interested. Like it'll always kind of form that bridge. And now, like, to continue on, it's like, you know, the reason we're doing this podcast today is we got a pretty significant milestone in a moose hunt that we did
for a whole bunch of reasons.
So it feels like not right to not do a podcast about it because it's part of this whole, you know,
it becomes full circle with this one, I think.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, man, I think ultimately it was more of like an opportunity to reflect than it was to reflect on our own story. I think it was more the focus, but
so that was a long-winded response to that.
I still think there's definitely opportunities for like every probably, you know, business and area when we talk about social media for improvement, right? I mean, I don't think hunting's any different, but it all comes down to like I just think self-awareness of like
Yeah.
what we're doing, and we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. But
You got some quickies we can answer?
yeah, CMW Hunt says, any tips? Oh, actually, this one's, he said, any tips for island blacktail? And I said, not from me. This is something you've done.
Yeah,
no?
so I've only been on one island blacktail hunt. I won't say where we were, but we were on an island that almost had like a blacktail problem. It's kind of overrun with them.
Right.
So my suggestion would be to do research and find a spot like that, because I know there's a number of regions where they're sort of overrun with them. I read this maybe 6 months back, but it's come to a point in some areas where they're sort of coming in and taking some of these out. Like the government is coming in with some programs and
right.
hiring a contractor to come in and light them up, basically. So it's better if hunters are doing it, obviously. So find areas that you know are going to have a good population. And then for us, man, it was basically just sit and be patient. And we saw a ton of deer, and it was a ton of fun. And to be in like some of those old growth forests is such a contrast from hunting here, which is desert basically, to being in these massive trees. And it's pretty wild, man. So
totally.
I mean, I don't have a ton of tips, but
did you guys do mostly still hunting through the timber, or did you ambush, or
no? It was mostly still. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And there was just a lot of them around.
Short shots, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think at the time we could have shot does as well. So it was like any buck, any doe
Interesting.
kind of situation.
That was November, right?
I think so.
You guys still hunting regularly? Yes. I think we touched on that already.
Yeah. I took a bit of a break for sure.
Yeah.
For a couple of years there maybe I'll talk about it more at another time, not for any specific reasons, but just felt like I needed to regroup after all the shit that I went through. And
more just life.
Yeah, exactly. Not that I was like anti-hunting for 2 years. It was more I just needed to figure my shit out.
Totally.
Yeah.
Did you do any calling? I think this references the moose hunt. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, let's come back to that one.
Bullet weight caliber.
Same. No change.
Yeah, so bullet weight caliber. I mean, this wasn't our tag. This was actually my dad's tag. But I know he shoots a 30-06, and I'm thinking he probably shoots 165s or 180s. I'm always on the 180 train.
Yeah.
But I can't confirm exactly if he had those. What did you guys use for accommodations, meals, etc.? So
we can come back to that too.
Okay. Will you be getting guests back on? Skip it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Let's put it that way. At this point, we're doing one. We'll see what happens. No promises.
Canuck City, where you been? Actually, this one kind of ties into another one. Angus LeBurk says, how is Kelly finding the challenges of being a good dad, husband, and hunter?
That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. And I think he appropriately put the word hunter at the end, right? And
it comes
the
to
whole
last.
point is it's just a prioritization thing. You know, I think every year, even, you know, since the podcast hasn't been active, maybe this last couple, I want to say, I've still been lucky to have, you know, one solid trip every year.
Yeah.
And then some day hunts and, you know, even some off overnighters in there and stuff too. And that's just a function of, you know, I'm lucky to have a spouse that supports my hobby there and is less lucky to have me be successful lately. So it's super good to have a successful hunt so that you can come home and kind of, it feels more validating, you know, in the sense of like you're putting stuff in the freezer and
gone drinking whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, you know, I'm lucky on that aspect that you don't realize it until you're in it, but there's a lot of pressure that you put on your spouse and your family when you go out like that, you know, especially when you both have demanding jobs and it gets pretty intense pretty fast. Yeah. And, you know, there's a lot of effort and, you know, the kids, James is 4 now and the energy is just nonstop, right? So you're on all the time. There's no time for you.
Yeah.
So if you're gone for a week or whatever, that can put a lot of weight on somebody.
Yeah.
It's all fun, of course, but like, it's still a lot of work when you got a work day on top of that.
Yeah.
So, I think that it's definitely tougher with the family. It's kind of, for me, it's turned into a 3-way street. So it's just balance, right? Trying to balance that. And when you pull an LEH or something like that, obviously everybody, bears down and tries to come together to make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's what happened this year. But there hasn't been as much opportunity as usual, compared to before. But James is getting to an age now where, I can take him out and do some small game stuff and, the opportunities they're kind of going to grow with him over the next few years. And then pretty soon we're in full blown, like going on trips together mode. So there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and, he was engaged in this hunt a little bit in terms of the back end and, picking up the meat from the freezer and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
well, man, let's, there's more questions, but I think we should just get into it because we're already 30 minutes into this thing here and we haven't even talked about the moose hunt. So you give the backstory because this is all family related on your side.
Yeah.
And how it all kind of happened and came together.
Yeah. Well, previous podcasts, I think we talked about my dad getting into hunting and he did his core and his PAL. And, we kind of inspired that based on our journey in the podcast. Right. And, he was inspired.
I was throwing out a lot of hints. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. He was inspired by our podcast and, you were throwing out a lot of hints for sure.
Yeah.
He grew up, my grandpa hunted, which we talked about as well. But, that doesn't necessarily mean it carries over, even with us, right? Like your dad hunted a lot and it didn't really at first carry over. Like you were interested in music and a lot of things too. So like sometimes you get interested in different things. So I think for him, it was a little bit full circle. And the story I always remember my grandpa telling me is of moose hunting and, packing that thing out and
I love
doing
that
all that.
story,
and I've got pictures of him with moose and stuff. So when I was applying to LEH, I kind of applied for this area for moose. And I was thinking to my dad, like, you should apply for the same area because, I haven't been lucky in the last 5 or 6 years. So maybe you will be, right?
Yeah. And it's close to home for him.
Yeah.
Too.
So I was kind of rallying the troops and this was all single tag, right? It wasn't a group hunt.
Yeah.
Because we have actually been drawn for a group hunt. So I thought, maybe we shouldn't go down that road. Maybe we should just do singles.
Right.
Maybe we'll get lucky that way. And none of us got lucky. I talked to a number of people and, whether it was in our hunting group or not, there's just nobody that was drawing anything.
Yeah. And me like a moron, I fucking missed the date and didn't even apply for anything. So
So next year we got to change that. But then my dad went on a fishing trip. He was gone for like a week beyond the results. So then I sent him a message and I was like, whatever happened with the LEH? Did he get lucky or what's going on here? And then he looks and he's like, oh, I got a moose. So, I was, pretty happy about that. And immediately we started researching some areas and, that's all fun. I mean, we talk about how that's kind of the fun part, right? Is planning. And you've got how many months? 4 or 5 months, something like that.
Yeah.
To figure it all out. And we ended up with my dad, my father-in-law, Randy, who's been on the podcast and yourself and I. So good group, 4 of us.
I think your dad said to me through you that I got him into this shit, so he better be there to back out some meat. Something along those lines. So I was happy to be invited.
Yeah. So we had a good group there for sure.
Yeah.
And then, fast forward to us basically going up. Well, we did some scouting. We kind of looked at some camps. Yep. They went in a couple days early through the week. They're retired. They've got time to do that. And we didn't show up until the day before opening day. The first thing we do, we show up. Remember that? We pull into the camp and my dad's there and he comes running over and he rolled the window down. He's like, I just saw a bull moose. If this was tomorrow, we would have been done.
Yeah.
Apparently he walked into this moose. It was like, 60 yards away and the thing stood up right in front of him. It's a pretty solid bull moose. Yeah. So right away, I'm like, oh man, this is promising.
Yeah.
But his eyes are wide and
so immediately we're like, yes. And they had seen a couple of bucks too. And it was any buck starting on October 1st. Or like, shit is going to happen here, man. And we had seen a bunch of does on the way in and stuff like that. And it definitely felt like this is the,
it was awesome.
I never want to get my hopes up, but I'm like, this feels good. So far,
Yeah.
so good.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
We threw the tent up. We had the Hilleberg there.
Yeah. So somebody asked about camp setup, and
Yeah.
your dad had the camper, which was great from like a cooking standpoint. And I mean, obviously great for them to stay in. We weren't in it, but
Yeah.
as far as comfort goes and heat and
Yeah, and I've stayed in it before. It is comfy.
yeah.
Flick the furnace on in the morning. Helps out quite a bit.
Yeah.
Hilleberg's nothing to scoff at though, because
No, man.
it kept us. We were pretty high. I would say we were about 5,000 feet at least, and a little bit of condensation in the morning, but nothing that would bother you.
No.
And a 4-season tent keeps you warm.
I was like hot for most of it.
Yeah.
Those first couple nights, I think, were a little bit cooler, but I was never cold.
Yeah.
And
You should talk about the custom feature that you added to this tent.
the
lighting,
the twinkle lights.
Yeah, it's the best idea ever.
Well, I can't take credit for it. My girlfriend, we were camping in Oregon over the summer, and she's like, "You should put like some twinkle lights in here. It'd be cute." I'm like, "Okay, whatever. Like whatever it takes to like make you love being outside. Like I'm happy to do it." And then set up the tent and did it. I'm like, "This is brilliant, man!" Because they're just like, I think I got those at Costco. They're like the tiny little lights that are on a string.
Yeah,
and they're powered with 4 like AA batteries, and they last forever. And just strung them along like the clothesline that's inside the Hilleberg.
Yeah.
And you flick that on, man, and you've got enough light to read a book in there if you wanted to and organize your gear. And it's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah. No more headlamps in the tent.
No, you don't need. Yeah, because we were hanging headlamps, and it's kind of like directional. And if you're right in front of it, it just blinds you.
Yeah.
But these are awesome.
Yeah, it's a good addition for sure. And then
they should come standard.
You left them attached to that clothesline that's on the top of the Hilleberg. So when you stuff the tent back in the bag,
it just stays in there. Yeah.
You unfold it, boom, your lights are set up.
So nice work,
genius.
Zoe.
Yeah. Those things should come standard.
Yeah, they should.
But
it's awesome.
For this hunt, I actually I bought a cot off Deluxe Wall Tents. It's like a little aluminum cot. I put that in there, which was kind of cool. It's a touch high. I mean, it's more for a wall tent than it is for any other kind of tent, but it is pretty comfy. Yeah. And I think you were like, because you're a little bit higher, you were getting a little bit more condensation on that, especially if you were I was touching
rolled
the side
over
too.
to that side of to the canvas side, or not the canvas, but the tent side of the tent. Yeah. And obviously you're breathing on it, and that's going to happen, but I mean, not a huge deal. And it kind of only works if you have one person without it and one person with one. Yeah. The cool thing about it is you have a lot of storage under the cot, right? And you can get small, lightweight cots for tents, I think, that are more like 6 inches high. Right. I think it is kind of a cool idea because you do get more storage and more organization. Yeah, I was jamming my shit under there too. I don't know if you noticed. Exactly. So folding up my clothes and putting them underneath there is nice. Yeah, a little bit of an experiment, but it worked out. Yeah. Definitely need sleeping pads and stuff like that on them because the air will make you cold. But I was the same way, man. I was more taking layers off than putting them on. The first couple nights, heated up an Nalgene bottle or put hot water in an Nalgene bottle. We've probably talked about this before. Yeah, and just throw that in the bottom of your sleeping bag, and it helps. But after those first 2 nights, I'm like, I don't need this thing, man. Yeah. I'm hot in here. So that tent is 4-season tent for a reason. I was ready to throw out my sleeping bag. It's a good sleeping bag. It's that Mountain Hard Gear torch. Right. Nice and warm. But the thing has a zipper that's right in the middle, and it only goes down about 3 feet. Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. So, what do you do when I find it so hard to get my legs in there? Like, you basically destroy your whole setup with your pillow and everything just to get in the bag. Yeah. Yeah, and if there's a grizzly bear outside, what the fuck are you going to do if you're torched? You need a knife nearby so you can just cut it open. Yeah. So, that's the one thing I might switch up. Yeah. But we were right next to a lake, kind of a nice spot. One thing I realized about, like, it's always nice to be next to water, be it a creek or a lake, but you definitely have like that moisture in the air and those cooler temperatures, which at nighttime you definitely feel it. But it's just nice to be next to water. Yeah. And you know what? We didn't even use the lake
once,
No, we didn't.
but that has to do with the camper probably.
Yeah.
One of the questions on the list here, which relates to the hunt, was is there anything that you would have changed in the hunt? And I have 3 things.
Okay, let's hear it.
Wall tent, wall tent, wall tent.
I haven't been engaging on this topic with you because I know you like to obsess about certain things, and I'm just like,
no, you're my. You got to keep me out of trouble on this one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like,
I think like it's a future thing, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be immediate, which is my downfall. Is everything like immediately?
Yeah, I know you're
about
fully into it.
Yeah.
You
But,
even slid it into like an unrelated topic today. You're like,
Yeah,
oh, maybe we could reach out and just see
yeah,
if something could happen. And I'm like, I don't know.
yeah. I know. But I think I'm more thinking about when James is old enough to come out and spend a night
Yeah.
or whatever. It kind of like opens up that family engagement. Like, you know, people are comfortable. It's more of that. Well, we've had a few wall tent hunts now.
Yeah, it's more of a hang.
Yeah, and also like
Drying clothes.
It's
Yeah.
such a major. It's so nice to be able to go out and hunt, get completely drenched, put in a full effort when it's tough, and then know that you're going to be dry the next day.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not something that is immediate, but I think in the future it's definitely going to happen. Like, you know,
Yeah.
within the next few years.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see it as like a right away kind of thing, but
Yeah.
at some point when I look, so we're talking like close to $6,000 for like what we want.
Yeah, 5 to 6
And
grand.
so
Probably.
if someone like stacked up $6,000 and said, what do you want to do with this? Like hunting related? I'm like, fly and hunt. That's where my
Yeah.
head goes.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I always lean more towards like the experience side of things. And like
Yeah.
right now, I feel like at this stage of our lives, we would maybe use it for like 5 days out of the year.
Yeah, it
7.
would be like one of the hunts of the year as opposed
Yeah.
to all the hunts.
So
right?
it's like, it doesn't seem that important now, but as we get older, like you said, with James and stuff, you like,
Yeah.
you know, like I mentioned my girlfriend, like I want her to enjoy camping. So the more I can sort of bring to that to make it comfortable and enjoyable,
Yeah.
the more, I mean, she loves it now. It was this kind of a process, but she loves it.
Yeah.
And so it would be the same with James. If we brought him out and put him in a tent and he's freezing his ass off and hating it, and that's his introduction to hunting, he'd be like, fuck this. I don't want to do this again. Like, what
Yeah.
are you talking about? You know?
Totally.
So it'll happen eventually. I just don't feel like quite there yet.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was, so I guess we've only got to the part where we rolled up on the
Yeah.
campsite. Well, we set up our tent. We went out that evening. We were in a mule deer spot too. Like you say, we were last day of 4-point season when we showed up. And then we have an any buck season where we were at. So I think we were all kind of hoping that, you know, you always hope that when any buck season shows up that you're going to have a solid chance of somebody putting something in the freezer, especially with 4 guys.
Yeah.
But I find that they just disappear into
They
the
do.
timber,
I
right?
swear to God, they have a fucking,
Which is why there's an any buck season.
there's a calendar somewhere that they can look at, and it's like October 1st rolls around and they're gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
I don't get it.
So yeah, we didn't end up with any bucks, although we did see a ton of deer, just not any bucks.
Yeah. I was kind of wondering because we were there like days after a full moon. And those, like I woke up in the tent a number of times and like, Jesus, it's bright out, man. So it's possible that had something to do with it too. They're just out feeding at nighttime. And and I know, I think it was one of the last nights we were there, we were coming back on the quad and holy fuck, there was animals like everywhere, man. And that was right at dusk. So I feel like things are really coming alive at that like 6:30, 7 o'clock kind of thing, which is obviously too late to shoot.
For sure. Yeah. So, you know, the next day, which would have been the opening day of the hunt and the tag, we ended up going basically where my dad saw that moose, right? So we go up there again. We're walking through this cut, you know, big cut, lots of cuts are all different. You know, some cuts are it just doesn't feel right, you know, full of fireweed and, you know, maybe not as good of food, and other cuts kind of depends on elevation.
Yeah. And you're seeing,
and, you know,
sign,
some
but
of
it's
them have
old,
tons of
like
food.
from
Yeah. Different
months
ages.
ago
You know, generally we haven't been hunting in cuts much, but something just felt right about this hunt. Hiked into the back. He's like, you know, this is where I saw that moose. And then I see this cow moose run across the ridge at the end of this cut. And I'm like, oh, that's promising.
Yeah.
Cow and a calf. 6 mule deer come prancing along after it. I'm like, wow, this place is awesome. This is only the first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Died off. So we're kind of like, I'm doing a bit of calling, like cow calling and stuff, just to see what would happen. Wander around a little bit. There was that point where we met up with you and I saw this moose crawling through the timber.
Yeah.
So right away, I'm like, okay, this cow moose was near the timber. This other moose, I don't know if it's a bull or the same cow or what, but it's crawling through the timber. I'm like, something seems like they want to hug the timber. It makes sense. Yeah. I just didn't think, we haven't hunted a lot of moose. Well, we've gone on moose hunts, but we haven't actually seen a lot.
Yeah.
But it started occurring to me that like, these moose seem a little bit skittish for some reason, like they're just hanging around the timber line. And then, a while later, kind of looked down to the other side, and all of a sudden this big moose, like it looked jet black, big paddles on him, comes running by. He's at about 250 yards, and I'm like, oh, there's moose right there. Dips into the timber again, and we're calling, and eventually pokes his head out, and you could just see his paddle sticking out there. Right?
I want to rewind a little bit, Kel, because you had seen that moose earlier. So go right back to you and your dad went to the top part of the cut.
Yeah.
Randy and I went to the bottom. When we got to like the sort of edge of the bottom, Randy and I split up, and I didn't really know like the lay of this cut. So I like followed the timber line all the way back. Didn't really know where I was going to end up.
Yeah.
I thought you guys were in like a totally different area. But I got to like the certain area and I saw you guys glassing from there. So I waved, and then
I thought you were another hunter. I was like,
yeah, met up with you guys. And then right when I met up with you, that's when you saw the cow or bull, or you saw the ass or something.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to go anywhere just to make a bunch of noise. So I just decided to hang out. And you guys were calling, trying to get that thing back. And I was up behind you guys just raking on a tree and shit like that. So this whole effort was like kind of going towards this other moose that we weren't sure if it was a bull or a cow.
Yeah, we'll call it like the north side.
Yeah. And I think by doing that, we were sort of unknowingly getting another bull curious from the
west side.
Yeah, the west side. And I think that was our fuck up, was like, it's always the minute that you drop your guard and be like, all right, it's fucking... it's getting close to noon here. Let's take a break. But I think all that effort that we were putting into trying to get that other one to come back, we were getting this other guy interested. And of course he pops out as we're starting to like stand up and put our packs on. And
so I think he spotted us, right? But he was still curious, which is why he kind of poked his head out again. And I thought for sure if we just keep on it, right, like he's going to be curious and he'll come back. But then, we kind of saw him dart off into the timber,
I was
and that was
watching
about
him,
it.
And I think he spotted us, and
which was kind of disappointing. But then at the same time, it's like, oh, this is day one of the hunt.
Yeah,
like this is unreal.
Totally, yeah.
So I think I'm trying to remember if anything else kind of significant happened that day, but. I posted a couple pictures of just the colors that we're experiencing.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Just the season's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's a cool place to be, especially super early in the morning like that with a little bit of frost on the ground.
And all of like that alder brush was like orange and red and yellow. It was pretty cool, man.
Yeah, for sure. And we had some good weather early on too. Blue skies, which may or may not have helped the situation, but like at the beginning there, we were seeing a lot of things. So day 2 of the tag, which would have been,
third day of the actual hunt. We thought we would like divide and conquer. So like, yourself, Wayne, and I went to the upper cut. You guys went to sort of like the northwest side. I kind of went to like the eastern and like the lower portion of it. And Randy went down this road to like the lower, there was another cut down below, which also felt like it had some promise to it. And so like, I didn't see anything. It was a pretty quiet morning. You guys didn't see anything. So it's one of those funny things where it's like, everybody kind of seems to have like the same, be like tuned in with each other. And we met up at like the same time and then walked down. We wanted to see what Randy was up to. And we got down there. He had seen some action like minutes before we had kind of rolled up. And again, it's one of those situations where you like drop your guard and you're like, oh, should we go for lunch or whatever?
Yeah.
And you can kind of take it from there. Because anytime there was a moose, I would sort of like pull myself out of the equation and let you guys kind of do your thing.
Yeah. I mean, it like I said, it's a single tag. So it's my dad's tag. He's the shooter, and it's also his first animal. So, that's a pretty cool thing. At the end of the day, we're all trying to get him a shot at a moose here. And, the cool thing about it was like day before the hunt, opportunity. Obviously, we couldn't take it. Day 2 of the hunt, which was the first opening day of the moose hunt, like I had an opportunity, but just couldn't make anything of it because the moose was in the timber.
Yeah.
The next day, we have another opportunity, just short on timing of the person being in the right place at the right time, right? But people are seeing things. So like this is all promising. We go back, have some lunch.
There was some excitement though. We should say like there was the possibility of, because it was like a 10, 15 minute window.
Yeah. I mean, Randy tried to call him back because I think he was pretty close to Randy. He was getting, 60 yards probably.
Yeah, sounded like
and then he tipped into the timber just like the other moose that we saw.
Yeah.
And then Randy thought, actually, we could probably call him back. Let's see if he's still interested. Set my dad up for a shot and all this kind of stuff. And we just couldn't get him to come back. So, that was the morning. Afternoon, go have some lunch. We thought, you know what, let's not hit this area too hard, that we know there's bulls in there, but let's go check out another area and just give it a bit of a break. So we go down. It was actually further away, so it took some effort to get down there. We had quads on this trip, and there's a whole other aspect to hunting that comes with that too. I mean, we're generally more boots on the ground hunters, and I do have a quad now, and I kind of use it as a tool to get to where we want so that we can hike in and do that type of thing. But for this hunt, it actually helped us quite a bit. We got to cover quite a bit of ground. We had 2 quads, so we kind of doubling up a little bit on them, and that creates whole other issues in terms of comfort and cramping.
Yeah.
And,
but it was all new territory, so we were like learning about the area and finding new stuff, and so it's
exactly fun. So we thought, let's go to this new area. It took quite a while to get there. It started raining, just got soaked. We're putting our rain gear on. Rain gear's getting saturated. My dad and I actually turned into one area that saw a cow moose right away. So we ended up spending most of the afternoon there, just walking around in the rain, calling, switching locations and calling and on and on. And I think you and Randy, similar, just kept covering ground. You didn't have your pack cover and a couple key things. So your
pack was soaked.
Yeah. Everyone's getting uncomfortable. It's a bit of a cooler day too. So we all meet up. I don't know, it's probably about 4 p.m. And we thought probably a good thing to head back to camp now, and that's one option. The other option is, because we're further away, we could go on the way back. We could stop in at this cut that we keep seeing all this moose in. So, you know what? Let's do that. Let's put a solid effort in tonight. We're already soaked.
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
There was that funny sense of like, I feel like nobody really everybody would just prefer to go to the camp, but it's like, this feels like the perfect conditions. And like you said, we're already wet, like whatever.
Yeah.
It's on the way.
This is why we're here.
It's on the way back. Let's do it. We're not going to get wetter at this point. Let's go. But there's always that option to like, just pull out and be like, fuck it. Let's go back to camp, get a fire going, dry out. But I think all of us knew like, this just feels like the right thing to do is to go back to that spot. As miserable as this is, like it sucked. Don't get like, I wasn't really having fun at that point.
I mean, it was so miserable that I don't think any of us actually thought we would be there till the end of the hunting day.
No.
We thought we would go in there for maybe an hour, just make sure nothing was standing in the open and probably leave again.
Yeah.
And I think when we were getting set up and kind of getting ready to hike into all of our spots, you kind of mentioned that, right? Like I remember you saying like, I don't know how long we should really stay here in the sense that we're completely soaked through. We're not going to be able to dry any of this stuff out, And I said, jokingly, wait till we shoot a moose. We'll be out here for another 6
Yeah.
hours.
And it was funny because Randy and I were, when we were out earlier, just doubling together, and we're just joking, like, yeah, this is going to be the time. Like,
Yeah.
we're all wet, miserable.
Yeah. And you know what?
It's going to be the last light, and we're going to be out there cutting up this moose until fucking, you know, 1 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah. And I remember Randy's direction was, his idea was to hike back down the road and see what was there, which is also a good idea.
Yeah.
But I think the interesting part about that was like, you're kind of walking back towards camp.
I think that was his direction. Yeah.
So, and he wouldn't be able to walk, like it was too far to walk to camp really, but you're kind of like mentally going that direction. Right. And I think we were kind of all on that train to a degree, but you know, I also remember saying something about the moose gods, you know, like I just felt something they would appreciate it, you know?
Yeah.
So like long story short, we all kind of split off into different directions.
Yeah.
And my dad and I went to where Randy saw this moose before in the morning. So we're sitting there, we're looking out into a cut. We're kind of like in a corner of timber, right? There's timber going up the left of us and behind us. And we're looking out into this open cut. And then my dad starts calling now. So like I'd been doing a calling up till now. And I thought, you know, he said, I'm going to do some calling. I said, awesome. You do some calling.
I could hear you because I was up above you guys quite a ways, but I could hear.
It.
And I'm like, that doesn't sound like Callie's. And like, that must be Wayne. I'm like, it's pretty convincing from up here. Like, it's getting me in the loins a little bit.
Yeah, it was good. And then, you know, nothing. I'm looking through my binoculars and all I can see, like, you know, it kind of looks like snow. You're looking into a cut and all you can really focus on is like the precipitation in the middle.
Kinda, because I was at the top of the cut looking down, and that's just like these sheets of like, it looks like you said, it looks like snow kind of, because you can, when you're looking through the binos, you can see it in more detail, and like there's areas where it's a little bit lighter and a bit heavier. It's interesting to look at it that way.
It is cool. And like, you know, we got our hoods on and the water's just dripping and it's just miserable.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you know, thank God we only got a couple hours here at the most. So he's calling, and then all of a sudden this muley pops up. Super like very silver coats up there. I noticed like higher elevation. Like the
color of Earl.
Like Earl, yeah. So this muley is looking at us, and then she doesn't seem ultra concerned. I would say she's like 40, 50 yards away. Kind of looks at us for a while and then bounces off. I was just having fun kind of watching, right? 15 minutes goes by, another muley pops up. So they're all kind of hiding in these little, you know, nooks
it's amazing,
and crannies,
man.
right?
Like, as long as we've been doing this, it's always amazing to me where shit can hide.
Yeah. And this is like, when I say another one, it's like in the same area, like 50 yards away to my right, northeast from me kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then, you know, he's calling again. The third muley pops up. We're seeing no moose, not hearing anything. This other muley is looking right at us, but almost through us. Like, very odd. She almost was walking towards us, turned broadside, and she's looking and she's just staring at us. And a few times it looked like she was looking over our heads. I'm like, this is odd, you know? Mm-hmm. It kept going on. It was like another 20 minutes.
I should mention it's getting darker and darker as this is
so we're kind of like approaching 6 o'clock here. Once you hit 6:30, that's kind of where shooting or the sunset happens. So you can technically shoot an hour after that as long as there's light.
We were finding like 15 minutes past that was kind of in the no zone. Yeah.
And it gets dark fast. Yeah. And so we're approaching 6 o'clock, which is kind of like calling it time. And then I swear I heard this like grunt, you know, but I've said this a number of times through the hunt already, like just in these last couple of days that I've heard this grunt. And the one area it ended up, I saw this moose walking through the trees. I always felt like I was trying to convince everybody, you know, like I'm not crazy. And then I hear this again and I'm like, oh, maybe I've got my hood on. It's pouring rain. How could I have heard this? Right. So I tuck my hood behind my ear. I think it's a super important thing, especially when you're calling.
Absolutely.
That you should be not very close to the person you're hunting with. Like, give yourself some space and make sure your ears are uncovered and make sure you're listening like you've never listened before after every single one of those calls.
Yeah, I showed you
very
this
subtle,
that little trick of just cupping behind your ears with your hands. It actually works amazingly well to sort of like hone in on what's going on, especially when it's raining and everything. And yeah.
So we kind of learned this in the elk hunt, when we called in those 5 points, is like, you got to listen very intently and like purposefully when you're calling. So something just started. I just had this thought that something was going to trample us from behind, like I just felt like, you know what, there's timber on the left. I get it. It could pop out through there. But I started thinking about right behind us. And then, looking back, that's exactly what was happening. And it turns out it was a little grunt. And it turned out that deer was looking through us because there was a moose back there. So we stand up and I'm kind of calling it, right? I stood up kind of thinking, 6:00, I'm ready to go back to camp, I think.
I'm walking down the road towards you guys, ready to go home at this point. Yeah.
So my dad gets up and we're kind of like, brushing the water off of us, and I throw my pack on. And my dad's like, Kelly, he points across at the timber that's right behind our backs, right? It's like 60 yards away. And well, at this point, probably like 40 yards, right? We've already started walking back to this little outroad that we were going to jump on. And then there's this shape in the trees, this little paddles sticking out and this moose face sticking out there. I'm like, holy shit, there's a moose right there. It's like 40 yards away. So I just quickly look and I get my binos out just to make 100% sure. I'm like, yeah, that's a bull moose. It's a younger bull. It's not like these other two that, monsters, that we've seen over the past 24 hours. But like, that's a good eating bull right there. And who knows if we're going to see anything else, right?
And that's something
like, these are kind of all things that like flash through your mind in that moment.
We had talked about it too. Is like, it's any bull.
You see a bull, you shoot it.
Yeah.
Meat hunt, basically.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm like, take it. My dad loading his cartridge, and then he has a front shot, shoots, basically hits it front side.
Yeah.
Moose rears up, reloads, shoots it right through the shoulders, and the thing dropped. Didn't run at all.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Now the interesting thing is like you're especially for new hunters, is like your first reaction is to kind of run to that spot. But we have had this experience before, so I was kind of, whoa, we don't want to run in there. Like, one, it's a moose, it's injured. We don't want to get injured ourselves. Yeah. Two, we don't want to push it into that timber because it's super thick in there. Yeah. And you could see the trees kind of moving around quite a bit just in that one spot because, he was kind of, it was quick, so that's the best outcome. But he was doing his thing in there, so we were giving him some time. And we had obviously, I think he was in shock a little bit. We both probably were, but big hug and like high fives, and it really was a meat hunt at the end of the day. And we got to fill the freezers. We're still kind of working on that. It's in the processing plant right now.
We can circle back to that. But so for me, kind of done hiking down, the moment I sort of like gave up, literally like 2 minutes after, I hear the shots were like pretty close to each other, and then nothing. I'm like, they got a fucking moose. Like I could just feel it.
Yeah.
And I had a radio, so I turn it on and it's flashing. Battery's fucking dead. So I'm trying to like call you guys to see what's going on down there.
Yeah.
Nothing. The thing just dies. And I think you guys were trying to call me and nothing. So I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. So I just like snuck down there, and you were hiking out. I see a big smile on your face. You're like, you just like gestured something to me. I'm like, yes, moose.
Yeah.
And you needed to go and hook up with Randy because you guys were talking on the radio, and let him know what was going on and go get him because he had walked pretty far at that point. And then I met up with your dad and gave him a big hug and had a look at it, and it was pretty exciting. Took some quick photos because it was getting dark at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty exciting.
Yeah. We were losing light fast, and I was hoping to get some nice pictures with the big camera and stuff, but light starts disappearing.
Never happens.
Yeah. I was surprised how far Randy got down that road actually. So I jumped on the quad and went to get him and bring him back. And I was like, oh, there's no way he made it this far. And I keep going and going and going. I'm like, oh. So yeah, by the time we got everything set up and everybody in the same spot and, got our gear ready and, prepared everything, it was pretty much headlamp time.
Yeah.
And that's, cliche, but that's where the work happens.
Yeah.
It starts. So I think for this one, what we decided was to basically have 2 runners and you and I working on the moose, which we did gutless method
Yeah.
with 2 guys. I don't know if I'm comfortable with, skinning and quartering an animal with more than 2 guys.
No, I think we came to that realization with the elk. With the elk. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's just too many cooks in the kitchen. And I still think that it's probably the most dangerous part of the hunt,
Yeah. And you even had said that when we first started going there. It's like, hey, this is generally, and I agree with you, like the most dangerous part of the hunt is knives.
Get the knives out.
It's dark and it's a combination of excitement and being tired and
hungry.
Everything. And so I think it's good to like find out who wants to do what task. And I feel like my purpose there was to like do the grunt work. So like I'm ready to go on this thing. Like I don't need to drive a quad all, it's kind of backbreaking work because you're hunched over, you're dealing with like heavy quarters and moving them around. And it kind of beats you up more than you expect, really.
Yeah, totally.
So,
and this wasn't a huge old moose. It was a younger one.
Still big though.
Still big.
Yeah.
Long legs, gangly.
Yeah.
Not the most photogenic creatures.
No.
In their own right, I guess they are.
Yeah.
But that was basically our job, right? Was gutless method, quartering. We actually made pretty good time of it, maybe 3 or 4 hours, I would say, in that range.
I think we were
somewhere
all done.
in there.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. I mean, it was raining still for a period. It kind of eased up on us for the first half and then started up again.
It was there was one maybe 20-minute period where it got really wet again, and then it was beautiful after that. Yeah.
My dad and Randy were basically doing laps back and forth to camp, which were pretty solid round trips in the dark too. I mean,
good 45-minute round trip kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's not easy on it's not exactly comfortable doing that back and forth on a quad either.
No.
So we had a pretty good thing going there. We were up there by ourselves in the dark and felt really good to be there, and when we were done, I think we were just standing there in the moonlight.
That was my favorite part. Just, I don't know what it is, man. It's like, how do I explain it?
Because we were waiting for them to come back still. So we had like 30 minutes.
So it's just being in a place where you feel like you shouldn't be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is not our home. We're like out of our element, but it feels very like right at the same time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just
this is like high elevation too.
Yeah. It's like how many people are doing this right now? Most people are at home watching TV or.
Well, I always think of, because I fly to Vancouver quite a bit for work, and it kind of, you fly over a lot of areas. I guess it doesn't matter where you're flying, but you kind of look out the window and you're like, you kind of see mountains and you see trees, right? But you don't really expect that there's actually a dude standing.
Yeah, two guys down there,
right? And
drinking a beer.
You're drinking, and they're drinking a beer, and you're taking like the 9 p.m.
Yeah,
and you're flying over. You see reflections of lakes and stuff in the moon light.
Yeah,
you never expect somebody to be standing right there.
No.
So it does kind of feel like you're not supposed to be there.
Yeah, it just feels very unique and special. Yeah, I was just taking it all in, man. Like every second out, like I can think about it right now, and I can just like close my eyes and put myself right there. Yeah. This is like my favorite part of the whole hunt. Standing there.
Yeah, that was cool. Super successful in terms of taking the moose apart. I think we did that really clean experience. I think now we have a bit of experience in that department.
Yeah.
It's a bit, of a shock when you see the animal on the ground and you realize how big it is. Yeah. But I think it's the principles are all the same.
Yeah.
And you just got to get started and hopefully it all comes together. I did notice that I had to sharpen my blades right off the bat because moose hide is quite thick and you need to get in there. Yeah. Once you kind of break that barrier, it's okay. But it it takes a sharp knife, I think, to get in there.
Absolutely.
North arm knives.
Yeah, we're both using the mallard.
The mallard, yeah. So we took apart that whole moose with the 2 mallards.
Yeah.
Sharpened them a couple times. That was it.
Yeah, 2-3 times maybe, and that was good. Yeah.
So yeah, super super nice knife. Fixed blade. Strong. Never had concerns about it breaking off. And I've had that happen with certain knives, the piranha and stuff, which has always freaked me out since then. But yeah, nothing like taking backstrap off a big animal like that.
Yeah.
Everybody has to see it.
Yeah. You got to hold it up.
Yeah. Everyone has to hold it. It's kind of like, the Stanley Cup, right? But you're thinking about the meals and then, what did we do? We threw, we had everything in camp that night, and then we drove out that day. It was kind of a throwaway day for us in terms of hunting.
The following day,
because we took everything down to the closest town, and I had set up a contact with a walk-in fridge, which was awesome. So shout out to Mark.
Yeah.
He was a beauty through the whole thing and super helpful. But yeah, basically we had everything in quarters. We were able to put it in a walk-in fridge, and then we were able to travel back and resume the hunting, right? Which would have been mule deer, and we all had tags for that. So kind of shifted into a different gear, and it was great. Extended the hunt for another 2 days after that.
Yeah. It was funny, man, because we got back and you and I kind of said like, today's a write-off, like whatever, we'll just go hang out at camp. And I think we were there for like 45 minutes and like
throwing the gear on.
Should we get going? And we went and checked out a spot that we went to on day 1.
Yeah.
And awesome spot, but it just didn't, not the right time, I don't think.
Yeah, it's a tough spot too, because I think like there's a ridge there.
We know they're in there.
Deer in there.
Yeah.
It. It's just there's not a ton of visibility.
No.
It's almost like a still hunting.
Just like the moose, man, I think they're smart enough to know in any of these cuts that they just need to stick on the edge of that timber.
Yeah.
And if they see something, they're just gone. And there's no way you're going to go in there and find them. It's impossible.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So the next day we got up. I'm trying to think here.
You and I went back to the same spot we did the previous night.
Well, I was thinking about the morning that we got up and we kind of walked through. We thought, this is the danger of Google Maps, is we saw this cut in real time, right? We could see it across the lake. And we were like, that would be a great place to go. This is in the morning. And I think it was a subsequent morning.
Oh, right. Yes.
So we see this cut over on the other side of the lake. Like,
okay, never mind. I fucked that up. Yeah.
So I'm looking at my maps and I'm like, there's no road. It doesn't show anything. I think the only way we could get in is if we go all the way around, and then we got to hike, basically the length of the lake, and hopefully there's an access point into this cut. So we go and we do that. And it was just pushing through alders the entire time. And then it turned into an uphill battle, and we're literally like pushing up. It got steep. It was like 25 degrees, I would say, 30 degrees in some spots. And we're just trudging up these alder-filled hills. And I'm like, what the hell are we doing?
Found some more sweet moose country, though, too, in the process.
Yeah, we did. More of the traditional kind of swampy areas. And then, we finally pushed through, and there's this like big cut there. And right away, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It's like rocky outcroppings and
lots of sign.
Yeah, lots of sign. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is all going to be worth it. Another one of those things where it's like the hunting gods will appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then nothing, right? We didn't see a single thing in that cut. And then we decided we'd probably have to do the full loop. Like instead of going backwards, we would just hike through the entire thing, go out the other side and make this big loop back to where
I think it was like an 8-kilometer loop through.
Yeah, so we put a lot of like miles on the boots that day that were not necessarily easy. We were just kind of blazing our own trail, but it was cool. It was nice to, get that side of it in, and I felt like we had a pretty good chance there. But sometimes
me too.
Just doesn't.
And it was cool because we had the original plan, which was to go to the spot that we were the night before. But probably like 5 minutes from camp is where we like slow down, like. That looks pretty good back there, man.
We got sidetracked.
Yeah.
Turned into an entire morning.
Yeah.
And then, sure enough, we get back down, and I think we went for lunch and I was looking at the map again. I switched it up. I think I use I like to use ArcGIS because the imagery is really good.
Right.
But then I looked at Google Maps and it was like, oh, actually, you know what? The ArcGIS didn't have this cut and the road was actually super easy to get into.
Yeah. And I can't, even when we were like driving, I'm like, man, are you sure like we can't get up
Yeah.
like this way? Like that cut looks fresh.
I'm like, no.
There's
nothing, doesn't show up on the map.
And then we go to the other end of it and it's just like deactivated road. That's slowly turning into a moose trail, not a road anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Overgrown moose trail.
But no, we both looked at the map and like, yeah, I guess, man. Like,
yeah. And I think we started realizing it, but then it turned into we're committed to this and we're going to get rewarded for going the way that literally no one else would have.
No.
So, but it didn't pan out that way.
I think in the process, we
that's
probably
fine.
Spooked everything because we're making a lot of noise.
Yeah. And I don't think we had the wind on our side either.
No, we didn't.
So,
no, that was cool though, man.
Yeah, it was a good way to explore that side of the area.
Yeah.
And then, what else could we say?
Later that evening, we went to that really cool burn area. I loved that, man. It was a very, just a cool spot.
Yeah. I like that spot too.
There's a few, we split up a couple times and I hiked into some areas and he went into some other ones. And yeah, it was really, just kind of like a unique landscape to be in. And it kind of had like whitetail vibes to it too, man, as well as mule deer. I could see either being in there. Yeah. And nice from going from like that thick timber where as soon as you're at the edge of a cut, you can't fucking see anything.
Yeah.
Where these burn areas, you can definitely kind of see a little bit further back through the trees.
Right.
But again, man, I think it was just that full moon situation, or if it's just October 1st.
Could be pressure too.
Disappear. And it could be a bit of everything. But the sign that I was seeing was like, there's some big bucks in here, but they're not here right now, or they're hiding and they're right in front of me. But
got to be there at the right time.
Yeah.
But we saw some good areas for sure. And then I think it would have been that same day we were traveling back to camp, and this would have been our final hunting day, right? Because the next day we were going to pack up.
Yep.
We're cruising along the road on the quad, and there's a cow moose, a calf, and a bull all running down the road right in front of us. So I took a bit of a video of that. This is in a different region at this point. We'd actually crossed into a different region. Yeah. And it's pretty cool. It's just cool to see them, We've been on some moose hunts where, whether it was up north or whatever, and, we had high hopes and it just didn't work out. I don't know if it was timing or temperature.
I think it was temperature.
Whatever. Yeah. But, it's so nice to draw the tag. And then when you don't see any moose, it's hard not to think you're doing something majorly wrong, right?
Yeah.
So this was a breath of fresh air, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming back to the ride home, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, there was just animals everywhere. There was grouse.
Yeah.
There was...
It's an amazing grouse year.
Yeah. Snowshoe hare, we probably saw 20 on the ride home.
Yeah.
And then with those two, the grouse and snowshoe hare, we saw a bobcat who was obviously just cruising the roads and eating those.
Yeah.
And then we saw a mule deer doe on the road, which got us excited because we probably had 15 minutes of light left. We're like, fuck, maybe a buck will come up behind this thing, but never happened. And then it was just too dark after that. So cool way to end it though.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really nice hunt. Saw a lot of animals. Nice to spend time with the dads.
Both
my dad and my father-in-law.
Nonstop entertainment.
Yeah, totally.
The food we had was incredible, and we all brought some really nice whiskey, which was a great way to celebrate and end off the days. And lots of laughs, lots of farts,
lots of firewood, lots of fires.
Yeah. I mean, everything you could hope for. I feel like we kind of overlooked that aspect of it because that was what I was most excited about with this hunt is that's kind of how I went into this one. I'm this is more about hanging with the dads, right? And it's kind of the thing that I never really got to do with my dad. So for me, it's kind of this is the way to do it. You know what I mean? And it's more of that communal aspect and
the camaraderie.
Yeah, exactly.
The sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It was
agree.
awesome, man. And so much fun. And
Yeah.
and Randy's hunted for
Well, his whole life,
decades.
50 years probably.
Yeah. So to go out with him and I were on the quad together
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
And we had lots of laughs and kind of just, leaning on his experience and just say, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And he would point certain things out like, oh, this is what I'm looking for. And this spot doesn't look good for this reason, or this spot looks good for whatever reason. And yeah, man, it's cool. So it was really great for me. Which this is the whole thing that brought the hunt full circle, which is like my dad passing got me sort of thinking about it, which made me talk to you, which got both of us into hunting, which eventually got your dad into hunting. And now, how many years later, I don't know how long it's been now.
7, 8
years. We're all together, and it's kind of like, this is like what we've been working towards is that hunt.
Yeah.
And
that
the fact that it was successful and that it was your dad's first animal. And I mean, it was just perfect, man.
Yeah.
And everything you'd want from that hunt.
Yeah. And the evening too, right? Pouring rain, cold, uncomfortable, didn't make the easy decision, made the not so common one, kept it going. He did the calling. He kind of even made a number of the choices in that moment based on his instincts, which I thought was interesting because I think that's a key point of hunting is like, you got to trust your instincts, and everyone's going to have different ideas at different times. Right. And even in the same moment, everyone will have a different idea of what you think is the right thing to do. So, yeah, man, I thought it was a good thing to just kind of let that happen, And I mean, it was pouring, right? It's so miserable. It's just like,
just fucking awful, man.
Just let's just go with this and see what happens. Yeah. And it all worked out. And and we were side by side. I was like 3 feet away from him, and we were both whispering like there's a moose.
And that's like what we had wanted to happen. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I could like picked my binoculars up and hucked him and bonked it off the side of the head, right? Like that's how close it was. So, you couldn't really write it up better than that.
No.
Not that like any situation, we'd probably be saying that of any situation. Maybe not. I just think it's so much cooler to like be in a situation where it's a little more uncomfortable in terms of weather, and it kind of surprises you, and it's right there, and it just adds this this element to it that was, it kind of all fits together, but it was just an element of surprise and an element of like uncomfort, or, lack of comfort.
But it's one of those crazy things where it's like immediately after your dad shot it, like the rain stopped. Other than like that 20-minute period where you and I were quartering it.
Yeah.
And the weather was perfect. It actually got warm. Like you and I were like peeling layers off.
Yeah, I don't know if that was actually because it was warm.
I don't know.
Because we were.
And then as the night progressed, goes to like a beautiful moon, and us just sitting out there just being like, oh man.
Yeah.
Like perfect. It couldn't be any better because it could have just been raining and fucking miserable like from that point on.
Yeah.
But it's just like you couldn't write it any better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Good idea to have a meat pole set up before you shoot something. Is another pointer.
Luckily the temperatures were on our side, and they laid some stuff down to get the meat off the.
Yeah. We had a couple ATV trailers there.
Yeah. So there was airflow underneath it, and it was cool enough. And that, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So I think, the moose was, like I said, it wasn't a large moose. I want to say it was about, had 3 on each side. Perfect moose for the freezer. Good
man,
eating.
the meat
we already
looks...
fried up a bit of the backstrap there. We had a little piece after we brought everything out of the fridge and brought it to my house and turned the garage into a, yes, we do. Bit of a processing plant.
Yeah, we should mention, so like to get home, to bring the meat in, to kind of clean it all up, all of that shit, it ended up being like almost a 12-hour day. By the time we dropped it off, cleaned everything up, it's always more work than you expect. And I think maybe some guys do less cleaning and meticulous work than we do, but I always feel like the butcher is going to appreciate getting really clean meat. And we talked about the hide being kind of difficult to work with. There was not a lot of hair, but a bit on some of the quarters and stuff. And so we did a quick Google search, like, what's the best way to get rid of fucking hair on wild game? And blowtorch came up quite a few times. So I went and bought one. And you aren't like blowtorching the meat. You're kind of just like working your way along it very quickly.
Yeah. It almost zaps the hair.
Yeah.
Right?
You can hear it like crackle really quick.
Yeah.
And so it's not like you're heating up the meat. You're just burning that hair off really quickly.
Yeah.
And I feel like that actually helped quite a bit.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were lucky because the meat was in the fridge. So when we got it to my place, it stayed cold.
It was
for
easy
quite
to
a
deal with.
long time. And then we had the cooler set up. So we were kind of hucking stuff in bags and then throwing them back in the coolers. Phoned in early to local meat shop here and made sure they had capacity and that we could bring it in when we wanted to. And for this animal, we decided that we would, backstraps and tenderloins are kind of, we do the same thing every time. You either keep it in like larger chunks and then you cut it up as you cook it or when you need to, or you kind of, roast it or whatever, right? And then tenderloins, same thing. The rest of it, I think we're probably going to do hamburger because once you have the hamburger, you can do something with it at that point. You can either make your own sausage or you can bring it in and get stuff done with it. It kind of gives everybody the versatility of whatever you want to do after you can do it.
We should give a shout out to Lickman's, I think, because did you get the guy's name that we were? Shit, we'll have to find out because he was awesome.
I want to say Jason, but we should confirm.
Yeah. And he kind of, because we're telling him like, okay, there's a group of 4 of us. Some of us want this, some of us want that. And it's, what is the minimum? Like 20 pounds to do a batch of pepperoni, sausage, whatever you want to do. And everybody wanted different stuff. So he's like, well, it's fine if you just grind it and then everybody can just bring in their ground meat and do whatever they want. So like, okay, that's perfect because, if you and I decide we want to do chorizo or pepperoni, then we can do that. And your dad and Randy can do what they want. And I know Randy's got a guy that, and I think he likes to make his own sausages and stuff like that. And
it might be a little more expensive to do it this way because you might have to bring things in twice. But, in my experience, they're pretty reasonable too.
Yeah.
So if you can find a good place that's reasonably priced, and I don't know, it seems like a good versatile way to go about it.
Yeah.
And also just having those bricks in your freezer.
It's very satisfying.
Over the years, man, the thing that I get most kind of frustrated not having is just those 1.5 pounds bags of hamburger that you could literally make anything.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the conclusion I came to is like, well, fuck, like, what do I use the most of? And it's that because you can make a bolognese sauce, you can make burgers, you can make lasagna, you can make
tacos,
sausages,
pizza.
Anything, man. It's like, it's totally endless. And so I think that's the most versatile way rather than having 40 pounds of sausage and be like, Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and look how much ground beef is these days, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we got a lot with the all the backstrap and the tenderloin and the grind that we did. We got a lot of options and really nice meat to work with because there's a lot of backstrap too we brought home. It's all in my freezer here.
I'm looking forward to that, man.
Yeah.
Like I think within the next week we'll have that meat back. I think
he was doing it today. Yeah. So he might even get a call tomorrow.
Yeah, that would be unreal.
Yeah.
Then we'll have to decide if I need another freezer or not.
Yeah, we shall see. Yeah.
But overall, successful hunt. Pretty much, I would say we couldn't write it any better.
No.
Wouldn't change anything.
Nope.
Hashtag wall tent, Mike. But that'll be next time.
Yeah.
And I think it was excellent. Yeah. I had high hopes for this hunt because I was really hoping it would pan out this way, and it did. So it feels really good.
Yeah.
So lots of fun.
Yeah, and I just want to send a huge thanks to your dad for inviting me, and for Randy, and for everything that everybody contributed to it. And it was just a great time, man. And you don't always get a group that functions well together, but we all just hunted really great together, and it's just nice when things work out really well, right?
Totally.
So, yeah, man, it was awesome.
Totally. Well, let's do it again.
Let's do it again. And before we sign out here, I just want to say thanks to everybody that's reached out through Instagram. It's been pretty cool to see because we sort of just faded off into the sunset without ever saying goodbye. And I think we didn't say goodbye for a reason because we just knew that we wanted to keep this channel open and that. But really nice to hear from so many people and be encouraged to do this. But again, I just want to say that it's kind of something that we want to do for ourselves. And I think that's why it's enjoyed by so many people. It's just for that purpose. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So thanks.
Yeah. Most of the questions that we got from your posts there were just people saying, I don't have any questions, but we're happy.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of that.
So
yeah,
we went through all the comments. It's a lot of, there's a lot of positivity there, which, you know, I think both of us kind of look at each other like, you know, I can't believe we had that much of an impact, you know,
Yeah.
to some people, which is really cool. But yeah, you know, ultimately it's for us. And I think if the channel's open, like when the time's right,
yeah,
you know, if things happen, then
well,
we
here's the
always
thing,
have
Garrett
this, right?
has got a hunt coming up here. So
Yeah, and
I
he
mean,
had a couple before, right?
Yeah.
So we need an update from him.
We need an update from him. It would be nice to do a recap of the season because you and I have some plans too, and I want to get this guy out for a few more grouse / mule deer hunts, and
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. So it would be great to at least get Garrett on here and find out what he's been up to because I haven't really gotten any updates. And if he gets an animal, that would be pretty awesome to hear about and get all three of us back on the mics again. So
I agree.
no guarantees, but we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, great to chat. Look forward to the next hunt for sure.
As you're chewing on ice.
Hold on.
That's a good way to sign off.
There is one goal I still have for the remainder of the year, and that's that 4-point muley.
Yes.
So, you know,
it's all yours, Kelly.
it's not easy, but maybe we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And if that happens,
There'll be another one.
maybe there'll be another one. So, yeah, I do appreciate all the comments people are leaving. Definitely makes you feel pretty good to know we had an impact on folks in the hunting community.
Totally.
So yeah, appreciate it. And I have fun jumping on the mic. So if you want to do it ever, I'm here.
That sounds good. I'm right here. All right. Well, good luck out there with the rest of the season, and maybe we'll chat again.
Cheers.
Cheers. There you go. Episode 140. Glad we got to preserve that story while it was still relatively fresh, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hey, there's been some discussions since this episode was recorded. It's been a couple weeks since I did the intro and since Kelly and I sat down. And I don't know, we might just be coming back. So stay tuned. And like I said earlier, it's been a long time since we graced the old airwaves of Apple and Spotify. So if you could do us a huge, huge favor, increase our exposure if we're coming back, you can leave us a rating and a review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast from. Otherwise, keep an eye on our Instagram. We don't really do anything else. And you might just be seeing more of us. Talk soon.